Hey RC drivers, welcome back to the Traxxas Maxx project build series. Today's video is going to be very cool. We are going to install the WideMaxx kit on our truck. Now, I know there's a lot of people out there that say this kit should have just come on the truck to begin with, and I don't necessarily agree with that. I think the truck is a lot of fun right out of the box. I don't think you need it, but when you do put it on the truck, you're probably gonna have a lot of fun with it. So let's head over to the workbench and dive into this build. Here's our Maxx all loaded up with option parts that we've been installing throughout this series. If you haven't seen any of those videos, I'll put a playlist to it at the end so you could check it out. But today is WideMaxx Day. We gotta take a look at these new arms. Here is the kit that you get when you buy the WideMaxx set. It comes with arms, it comes with springs, it comes with steering links, and the newer kits come with the extended drive shafts. This is one of the older kits. It doesn't have the slider drive shafts in there, the extended ones, but I'm not gonna need those because I'm going to install the constant velocity drive shafts. Look at these things, nice steel units. We've got steel out drives on here and they just look solid. You know, when you're putting a lot of power through a truck like this and land hard on full throttle, yeah, I've seen people twist the drive shafts. It happens, but with these constant velocity drive shafts, these should hold up to a lot more abuse. And while I'm working on the truck, I also have the tubes toe links from Traxxas, nice blue anodized to go along with our scheme of what we're building here. They even give you a 7mm turnbuckle wrench, but these are lightweight and very strong. So we're gonna install those in the steering versus the plastic ones that came with this kit. All right, I'm gonna go rip all this stuff out of the package and we'll start working on the truck and I'll show you step by step how to swap out this arm set. I've got all the parts out of the bag and these new arms look really good and they feel really strong as well. All right, we need to take the shocks off first. So that's just a screw on the top and the bottom. We're gonna take all 4 shocks off because we are actually going to take the rear springs and put it on the front shocks and then put these new rear springs on the back shocks. And the manual that comes with the wide arm kit also suggests that we should put 50 weight oil in the shocks. So I am going to do that as well. Here, I've got some 50 weight oil. So I'm gonna get these shocks off and show you how to bleed them while they're off. I've got the shocks off the truck. Now we got to get the springs off of the shock. So what you're going to do is you're going to remove the screw from the bottom shock perch, and then you'll just slide the spring up, slide the shock perch up, and then just slip it off through the slot there and pull your spring off. And now you're ready to clean your shock. Yes, you should always clean your shock every time that you take them apart, whether you're changing oils or in this case upgrading your truck. It's just best to clean off your stuff as you go. So that's what I'll do. I'll clean this off, and once we have it cleaned off, you'll go ahead, take the shock cap off and dump out the oil into a trash can, and you'll be able to move on to bleeding the shock, adding oil and bleeding the shock, which is what we're going to do next. I have all the oil out of the shock. Make sure you turn it upside down and cycle the shock shaft a couple times to make sure you get all the oil out that was under the piston, and use a paper towel to clean off any excess oil in there. After that, you're ready to fill it back up. So I've got my 50 weight oil. That little shock caddy from Traxxas does come in handy. They have the 50 weight oil in there. So now we'll just go ahead and fill this up and get the oil almost all the way to the top. Doesn't have to come over the top of the shock there. And then cycle your shock shaft up and down again. This will get any air out from under the shock piston and get it up to the top, because these shock caps do have bladders in them, so you can pretty much build them without air. So just cycle it up and down a couple times, wait for the oil, or wait for the bubbles to come up to the top and pop. And once you do that, I like to go ahead and push the shock shaft up about a little over halfway, pretty much a finger width for me. And then I look at how much oil is in the top of the shock. And you want it concave just a little bit because that's where the bladder is gonna go and sit in. So I am just gonna put one more drop of oil in the top. And now I could go ahead and put my shock cap on and just hold the shock up and down vertically. I actually start turning the shock body while holding the cap, and then kind of tilt it down to the side with the bleeder cap facing up top. This will allow the air to come out. And tighten it down. Wipe off any excess oil. Just a little bit of rebound on that. Let's crank it down. and we're ready to put the spring back on. But remember, we are changing out the spring, so we're no longer putting the front spring back on this. We're going to take the rear spring, this is a different rate, and we'll put this on and put our shock perch back on. And I'll just put the screw back in and leave it up towards the front of the truck so I don't get it mixed up. Got my front shocks back together with the rear springs on it, so I'm gonna set those aside. Now I'm gonna go ahead and rebuild the rear shocks with the 50 weight oil. The only difference here is when I go to put the springs back on, I'm gonna put the new springs on, and then we'll move on to the next steps. All of our shocks are rebuilt with the proper springs in the right locations, and now it's time to move on to taking the arms off of the truck. So you're going to need a 2.5mm hex driver and a 2mm hex driver. I'm going to be using the Traxxas tools, and the first thing you're going to do is use a 2.5mm hex driver to remove the screw in the center of the front bumper. This is going to allow you to remove the hinge pin plate that secures them in place, and now you'll be able to basically take a pair of pliers and slide the pins right out of the front. After that, you're going to use a 2mm driver to pull the caps off of the upper pins, and then use that 2mm hex driver to remove the outer screws that secure the pins on the outside of the arms. Then you'll just be able to slide all the arms off of the truck. All right, I've got my suspension arms off of the truck. Just a little tip, take an L-shaped Allen driver to push the pins out of the arms. That makes life a lot easier. Next up, I have to remove the steering link, so that's just two 2mm screws. And then while I have it apart, I'm going to work on my constant velocity drive shaft. So I've got the shorter ones on here. We're going to put the extended ones on. So I'm gonna work on that after I get this off of the truck. So this is where things may vary depending on what option parts you're going to install. So if you are just installing the WideMaxx kit, you're going to want to go ahead and install that extended drive shaft that they include with the kit. I'm going to go ahead and put in the constant velocity drive shaft set, and I'm going to start off by removing the set screw that holds the pin into the wheel hex. Now I'll slide the pin out. I can slide my hex off, and I should hopefully slide my drive shafts out through here. There we go. And now I'm gonna remove the bearings because the constant velocity drive shaft kit comes with new bearings. So I'll slide those out and I'll slide the new bearings in. All right, next up is to get the arms on the truck. So you're gonna wanna locate the proper lower arm. There is a left and a right arm, and just slide those back in using the factory pins. There we go. And then just grab an upper arm and install it back into the top. Now we can take our steering knuckle assembly, slide the drive shaft in place, then we'll put the hinge pin back in. This one goes in through the top, and then we'll put the lower one in. And we can move on to putting in all the retaining screws. And as you guessed, you gotta repeat the process for the other side. I really like the blue and orange combination that I picked for this truck. Now I'm gonna go ahead and install those optional tubes, steering links on here. Let me grab those. Here they are. These things look really, really nice. So when you're installing these are pre-set from the factory. You don't have to worry about adjusting them. Just make sure that you note that the ball stud with the taller ends on goes in towards the steering, and then the shorter one goes out into your steering knuckles, and just install it using the factory screws. We've got the WideMaxx arms on, we've got the wide constant velocity shafts on, we've got the wide steering links on here. This thing is looking pretty cool. Now we just have to swap out the rear arms, and it's pretty much the same procedure as the front. I'll make the swap and show you what it looks like when it's all done. I've got the new wide rear arms on the truck. They were just as easy to install as the front. I also have the new constant velocity drive shafts on the back as well. The only thing I didn't show you was how to install the outdrive cup, and that's pretty easy. Just remove the set screw pin from the stock drive shaft output and install these new steel outdrives using the screw pins that they give you in the constant velocity kit. That's really easy to do. Then I bolted on the shocks, and this thing looks fantastic. I think it really turned out cool with the two-tone colors on here. I can't wait to see it in action, and that's gonna happen in the next video when I install the Sledgehammer tires. So if you haven't done so yet, please click that subscribe button and the notifications bell. Throw the video a like, and we'll see you back soon for some more RC Driver videos.